The Senate Committee on Government Affairs will come to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Daley,
Here.
Ellison, Senator Krasner, Senator Neal, Senator Orenshaw, Senator Rogich, Chair Florence,
Present. Please let the record reflect we have 6 members present. We do have a quorum. Please mark Vice Chair Orenshaw as absent excused. Good afternoon. Welcome to our very fun, hardworking Committee on Government Affairs. A pleasure to have all of you here. I want to remind folks, those of you who intend to testify, please make sure that you sign in and provide your business card and/or contact information to our committee secretary. I want to remind everybody, please state your name for the record each and after every single time a question is asked. We will quickly go through the 3 Senate bills in the order they appear, followed by the presentation by the City of North Las Vegas. In the interest of time, and as we initially mentioned at the onset of government affairs last week, we will be limiting testimony in support, opposition, and neutral to 2 minutes. For those of you who wish to testify in support, opposition, or neutral to any bill, I suggest that if somebody's already made a reference to your specific point, that you simply say a ditto or I agree with the previous individual. If there's individuals that wish to address more than 2 minutes, you can always submit testimony in writing to our committee, and it will get uploaded and be provided as an exhibit so that everybody else can see it. With that, I'd like to open up the hearing on Senate Bill 12. Good afternoon, welcome, and just as a preliminary matter, we are working off of our laptops. Please don't take that as a sign of disrespect. And everybody, please silence your cell phones whenever you're ready. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Flores and members of Senate Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Timothy Galuzzi, and I have the honor of serving as your State Chief Information Officer in the Office of the Chief Information Officer within the Office of the Governor. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Senate Bill 12, which revises provisions related to the Office of the Chief Information Officer within the Office of the Governor. I want to begin my bill introduction today by expressing my sincerest gratitude for this body and this committee in particular for the hard work that went into the unanimous passage of Senate Bill 431 last session. I was sitting in this room when we discussed the elevation of the Office of the Chief Information Officer into the Office of the Governor. As we discussed the merits, the potential, and even heard from a former state of Nevada CIO, I can sit here today and tell you that it mattered, that it has made a tangible impact on how the state views and manages technology. The conversations that I am having today with agencies have moved from tactical to strategic. IT governance and policy are growing stronger. Stakeholder engagement and communication are at a level that this office has never seen. Cybersecurity coordination and incident response are improving consistently. We are building trust with partner agencies. In short, your efforts on SB 431 worked. The bill I present to you today continues the efforts from SB 431 from the 82nd session. Firstly, let's address the name of the office I represent and the first and primary goal of this bill. In the executive branch, we have the governor's office, the lieutenant governor's office, the attorney general's office, the treasurer's office, the controller's office, and the office of the chief information officer within the office of the governor. My agency stands apart from the rest as the only one that is named after the principal leader that is not elected by Nevadans. I feel that that is a sacred distinction. and a significant justification for requesting this change. Additionally, our requested name, the Governor's Technology Office, was chosen in part based off of feedback that we received from our own members. The Governor's Technology Office, or GTO, demonstrates alignment with the Governor's Finance Office, or GFO, as a strategic partner for all executive branch agencies who leverage our enterprise technology services. The next section of this bill makes corresponding changes to align the units within this agency to new organizational hierarchy, bringing them into parity with similar positioned entities from across the state. The administration unit will become the director's office. The other operational units will transition into divisions, all except with the Office of Information Security, which, due to their size and independence from the operational side of the agency, we felt it was appropriate to maintain the office designation. But with that office's independence, we also felt that it was appropriate to transition the role from the classified service to unclassified. In the handouts that I provided to staff, I also include a diagram to be able to graphically see the makeup of the office. The next change that this bill envisions replaces the Department of Administration Director, whom this agency reported to prior to SB 431 last session, with the Chief Information Officer on the Information Technology Advisory Board. The final substantive change is one that will provide some clarity on titles. In NRS 242.183 in particular, it calls out both the Chief Information Officer as well as the Chief of the Office of Information Security. We are proposing adding the quantifier of deputy for the Information Security Chief to reduce ambiguity in the statute. I am aware that the Division of Human Resource Management is currently finalizing a statewide classification study that will be published soon. If this title is not in alignment with the recommendations of that study, and if timing allows, we would be happy to work with staff to offer up an amendment to make an adjustment, so we aren't back here next session discussing position titles. The remaining changes envisioned in SB 12 and make corresponding adjustments to related statutes where this agency is referenced and removes definitions that are no longer relevant. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to introduce Senate Bill 12. I will make myself available to the committee for any questions that any members may have. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the genesis of the bill along with the bill breakdown. Very much appreciate that. Members, any questions? Senator Daly, please.
I gotta get used to which one I go to. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of questions, if I can, regarding the classified to unclassified. And I know it's a deputy, and I just don't know how many other deputies are classified versus non-classified and what those are. I'm sure that there's some of each if you look through other state agencies and various things. But it says that person can stay in the classified until they vacate the position. So what's your definition of vacate? You know, can we say voluntarily vacates, or is there a plan to, you know, change out this person whether they want to or not? So I'm always just a little shy of taking someone from classified to unclassified. They have a lot of rights and other things they don't have being a classified employee versus unclassified.
Thank you for the question. Timothy Galuzzi, once again for the record. Chair, if it, for brevity's sake, would you mind if I go directly to the member?
Please go direct. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Senator, the designation of classified, as you mentioned, does provide unique protections in state service, in state employment. Currently, all deputies within our organization are unclassified. The position of information security leader in this organization, it does have wide reaching authority for setting cybersecurity policy for the entirety of the state. It does have operational authority of the entirety of the Office of Information Security, It was our belief that the unclassified classification was appropriate in this matter. As for the position remaining classified until the current incumbent vacates, that was in there to protect the current incumbent. And so if the individual gets promoted into another role somewhere in state government or retires, that's when the position could then be converted into unclassified. And so the position would have to be vacated before that transition happens with that language in the bill.
And Ms. Clarkson, our legal counsel, can also add some additional information regarding the classified, unclassified, and whether or not we can terminate that position.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, this is Heidi Clarkson with the Legal Division of the Legislative Counsel Bureau. Just to direct the members' attention, Section 7 of the bill is where the terminology change that moves the position from classified to classified. Section 31 of the bill also clarifies that the person who is currently the incumbent in that position of deputy chief as of July 1st, 2025, which is the effective date of this bill, must remain in the classified service until he or she vacates that position. Because that position is currently a classified position, that person has the due process rights that are currently afforded to any person in the classified service of the state. So whether or not that person that is in the position on July 1st can be terminated is subject to the other provisions of law that relate to the classified service.
And thank you for that, and that's why I asked, what does vacate mean? Right, and so thank you for the clarification there. If I can ask a different question? Please. Thanks. So just wanted to make sure I understood, and I read your paper, and glanced at it quickly here while we were looking at that. So when we're talking, what is the difference between the director of the department, which is the existing language, and then the proposed change to chief of the office? So are there two positions or just one? Because I think in another section 2, section 6.2a, where the chief is named as the head of the office, there's not two positions, there's just one, you're just changing the name. So is there a director and a chief, or just a director, or no director but now a chief? So it was a little hard to follow some of that breakdown on the titles and positions and the chairs on the deck.
Thank you for your question, Senator. Once again, Timothy Galuzzi for the record. So I understand the ambiguity there. So when discussing the director's office in section 6.2a, we're talking about the office, the budget account. So the actual grouping of individuals within that unit. So we're talking about a unit, we're talking about a group of folks that is the director's office. The position of the director is also the chief information officer of the state. And so that's where the distinction lands. So the person that fills my seat within state government is the chief information officer of the state, as laid out in the governor's NRS. But that individual is also the head of the Office of the Chief Information Officer, envisioned as the governor's technology office in this bill. So one is the unit name of the director's office here, and the governor's technology office, and then one describes the position. And so that's where the designation is. And I believe with the classification study, there might be a little bit of rank versus title type of situation there as well.
There's still only one person with maybe two titles, but one position.
Once again, Timothy Galuzzi for the record, that's correct.
Thank you. Senator Ellison, please.
Thank you. I see there's no physical note on here. Is there a reason? Because you're gonna be changing titles and doors and phones and all kinds of stuff. There's no physical note. That's my first question. The second question, is the governor signed on to this, or can you answer them? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Once again, Timothy Galuzzi for the record. We have a decision unit that we submitted in our governor's recommended budget that has a small amount of funding for changing of business cards, letterhead, et cetera. It is nominal. I believe it is in the $1,600 range, but that is already included in our governor's recommended budget that has made it already into a decision unit that will be heard when we get to the money committees. And then as far as this bill, this was already vetted through the governor's office and has made it through that approval process as well. So this has already received that approval as well.
Members, any additional questions? Senator Neal, please.
But I guess because I'm on finance, why are we trying to move to people who can be more easily fired? Because that's basically what you're doing.
Senator Neal, thank you for the question. Once again, for the record, Timothy Galuzzi. It's really not about trying to move an individual to be easily fired. It's really for parity for the other deputies that are in the office as well. To have one individual of a different classification that is holding the position of a deputy versus the other individuals in the office that are also holding that position of a deputy, that does create a bit of an imbalance and a parity issue in the office. So this is a parity and fairness issue that we're also trying to resolve.
So just for the record, how many, because it's the deputy chief, so how many deputy chiefs are unclassified now?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Right now, this is the only deputy that is called out in statute. Right now in the office, I currently have 2 other deputies that are in the unclassified service.
Their roles are what?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Timothy Galuzzi for the record. One serves as my chief of operations and one serves as my chief technology officer.
So you want the people who have the most knowledge on the operations and information to be unclassified. And if you lose them, because you know, I guess, I don't want to cross over, but your budget is in my committee. So when we cross over, you know, we've talked about institutional knowledge, we've talked about the ability to pass on information, you know, and where we lose individuals, and training seems to be a huge conversation this session. So how does this movement really, really benefit the agency long-term?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Once again, Timothy Galuzzi for the record. The unclassified service also provides us other opportunities to be able to hopefully pay at a higher level, to be able to attract other talent, and hopefully be able to increase the compensation for the additional duties and responsibilities that we're asking for statewide responsibility for policy making and the authority that we're asking highly seasoned individuals with vast scope of responsibility to take on. And so, you know, the unclassified versus classified conversation, I'm sure, is a debate that will continue to happen on and on and on. But this is a position that has the level of responsibility and authority that is typically indicative of the unclassified service.
Senator Daly, did you want to do a quick follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And when you were answering the question, and my colleague a second ago, you were talking about, well, is this level of parity within the office? So other than the title, right? So they have the same titles, they're same deputies. What's the other disparity in the positions? Does the classified get paid more? Does the unclassified get paid more? The unclassified doesn't have scheduled raises versus the classified. So what's the parity disparity besides, you know, the titles are the same. What's the rest of the parity you're looking for?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Once again, Timothy Galuz for the record. Typically, unclassified employees have greater flexibility in the pay rate. And so that's where we'll see some parity issues as well.
Greater flexibility in the pay grade. So do the classified guy get paid more or not?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Once again, Timothy Galuz for the record, yes.
I understand. Thanks.
Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. If I could have you sit back. At this point, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in support in Carson City to please come forward. I thought you were going to bring all your deputies, every single one, just line up. No? Please join us. And in Las Vegas, I'll ask if anybody's joining us in Las Vegas, if you could fill those seats as well, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Flores and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nick Schneider, Director of Government Affairs for the Vegas Chamber. In the spirit of the quick presentation, I'll keep my comments quick as well. We're in support of this change in nomenclature to better align with the GFO as far as the IT function oversight that this department will cover. Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else in Carson City? Seeing none, we'll go to Las Vegas. And I do not have access to Las Vegas on my end on the screen. So if you could just please speak into the microphone if you're waiting. Hearing nobody in Las Vegas, next we'll go to the phones. BPS, anybody in support? Senate Bill 12.
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to those wishing to speak in opposition of Senate Bill 12. Carson City, if you could please come forward. Seeing none in Carson City, we'll go to Las Vegas. Again, if there's anybody in Las Vegas, please hit the mic speak button because I cannot see into if there's anybody in Las Vegas. Opposition of Senate Bill 12, Las Vegas. Seeing none, BPS, is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 12?
Chair, you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. And lastly, we'll move to neutral. Anybody in Carson City wishing to speak in neutral of Senate Bill 12? Seeing none, we'll move to Las Vegas. Anybody wishing to speak in the neutral position for Senate Bill 12? Hearing nobody. BPS, anybody on the phone line wishing to speak in the neutral position for Senate Bill 12?
Chair, you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. Any closing remarks? Please.
Chair, once again, Timothy Galuz for the record. I just want to thank you and this and the committee for your consideration on this bill. Once again, this committee and this body have done so much work for IT governance and being able to bring the conversation of technology in the executive branch from the tactical to the strategic, and have done so much work in IT governance. And I appreciate that. And I want to build on that moving forward. And I believe SB 12 helps us do that. And so I thank you for your consideration on this bill and look forward to any future conversations that we may have on this.
And we look forward to working alongside of you as well. Thank you again. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out the presentation on Senate Bill 12. Next, I'd like to open the hearing on Senate Bill 25. Good afternoon, gentlemen, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairman Flores and members of the committee. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mike Dezak, and I am your state fire marshal. Today, we'd like to talk about Senate Bill 25, which is largely a cleanup bill for the division. The first part in the removal of NRS 477.1010, Section 2, is needed to allow the division to organize itself internally so it may adapt to changes in both staffing and statutory requirements without the need for a BDR. The existing bureaus are structured similarly, but with the additions of the State Emergency Response Commission, Fiscal, and Fire Prevention sections. The current bureaus of the State Fire Marshal are Fire Investigation, Engineering and Inspections, Training and Certification, Licensing, fiscal, prevention, and data and statistics. The addition of the cannabis cultivation and production facilities to NRS 477.030, Section 1C, allows the state fire marshal to perform plan reviews, conduct inspections, ensure hazardous material compliance, and enforce any and all fire life safety provisions in these facilities. Division is aware that companies have begun to set up these facilities within the state fire marshal's jurisdiction. The division, in conference with the Nevada Board of Fire Services, believes that the division has the resources and expertise in these areas to protect workers in the community, as well as to ensure the minimum safety standards are met or exceeded. Because these facilities tend to have significant volumes of hazardous materials, the division is in the best position to fill this need. The removal of Section 3 from NRS 477.030 is requested as it is an obsolete requirement. The Nevada State Fire Marshal and the State Fire Warden cooperate in numerous ways in all areas related to the prevention of fire. The division was given the responsibility to adopt for the state the International Wildland Urban Interface Code, or WUI code. The WUI code now dictates the way vegetation should be managed within the wildland urban interface. Therefore, the need for this specific provision is no longer required. The state fire warden and I have consulted on this and agree, and she has staff here to provide an amendment that would strike the same language from 472. You want to go ahead? Should we go with the amendment now?
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Ryan Shane. I'm a deputy administrator with the Nevada Division of Forestry. Here to present the amendment to the bill, which is simply a conforming change to the changes that Fire Marshal Dezak had described with vegetation management and enforcement adoption of regulations and laws. Our state forester serves on the State Board of Fire Services, governed by NRS 477073. Like the fire marshal said, there's constant dialogue about necessary things to help manage fire from all partners included on that board. So we see this as a necessary change just to clean it up and get current with our statutes and practices. Thank you.
State Fire Marshal Mike Dezak, again for the record. The additional language in NRS 477.030 and B of, quote, an injury or financial loss greater than $2 million bolsters the, unquote, bolsters the requirements of local fire and law enforcement officials within the state fire marshal's jurisdiction to request state fire marshal investigators. This language also allows fire and law enforcement officials in counties with a population greater than 100,000 people to request state fire marshal assistance in these cases. Those are the basic parts of the bill, and I am more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
And thank you for your presentation. I appreciate all the dialogue prior and leading up to this presentation with clarification more than anything else. Members, any questions? We'll start off with Senator Ellison, please.
Arms are getting shorter. The question I've got, looking back at, there was a bill that went to the county commissioners and it pertained to cannabis and agricultural areas, but it doesn't show it in this bill. My question was that some of these areas that these cannabis farms are out farther away from roads or whatever because they're in field areas. And one of the questions was brought to me was, are they going to require what kind of roads to get to these things? I mean, is a regular gravel road with spray on it, or are they going to try to say asphalt? Oh, that's my question.
Thank you for the question, Senator Ellison. Direct? Okay. Yes, that would be an agricultural
I
facility.
apologize to interrupt you. If I could have you identify, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Dezak, State Fire Marshal for the record. Yes, that would be more of an agricultural area. That's not what this is about. This is about the extraction facilities. I have knowledge of companies going out into the rurals and setting these extraction facilities, which unlike the agricultural counterparts have a lot of hazardous materials. The volunteer fire chiefs in those areas are not equipped to deal with this. It was not obviously something anyone thought about when they built 477 with what they wanted the fire marshal to oversee as far as the fire life safety codes. So this is simply putting us there. We believe it will be about 25 facilities statewide within our jurisdiction in areas where we don't have a current interlocal agreement with the local fire officials. And again, it would also place it in that area of where our regulations apply throughout the state. We're not talking agricultural, we're not talking dispensaries, we're talking about where they extract the product. We have had, down in Pahrump, we have had facilities like this that were not permitted, that no one knew what they were doing, that have blown up and injured people. It's likely to happen, so we just want to get in ahead of it. I would like to also add that the state fire marshal is 100% fee-based. So we're not, we don't anticipate a big expenditure of this, anything past what we currently have. We would conduct most of these inspections in conjunction with other inspections while we're already out there doing state facilities, churches, places of assembly, all the things that we're required to go inspect. So I believe that part of it will be minimal, but you don't have to, I've driven on those roads. I don't want any fire trucks on those.
And I appreciate it, because, I mean, you're talking $1.5 million a mile for roadway, and I appreciate that, and that clarifies that. So thank you very much.
Senator Rogich, please.
Thank you for coming and presenting. My understanding is that the cannabis cultivation facilities and cannabis production facilities must hold privileged licenses, which are issued by the Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board. A company must be in compliance with the strict laws and regulations of the CCB. This also includes compliance with local requirements, which include fire inspections, enforcement of fire safety measures, and approvals. We have at least 128 cultivation licenses throughout the state, 100 production licenses throughout the state. The exhibit that was submitted by your office relates to one cultivation license in the city of Caliente, which is in Lincoln County. So why is it necessary to create additional fire safety regulations for cannabis facilities when these businesses are already heavily regulated and strictly regulated by the Nevada State Cannabis Compliance Board and local jurisdictions in which they operate? The second part of that question is, have you discussed this with the CCB, and does the CCB agree with what you would like to do?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator. Mike Dezak, for the record, State Fire Marshal. We have the list of the facilities. We have, they actually took us on tours of the facilities. This is not enacting further regulations on the cannabis facilities. This is saying the regulations of the State Fire Marshal apply throughout the state. So the minimum fire codes apply throughout the state. So any of these places that are built anywhere are supposed to meet those minimum requirements. What this is saying is that the place like Caliente, where the fire chief doesn't have the he's a volunteer fire chief, he doesn't have the expertise to deal with the chemicals, with secondary containment, with the extraction processes, with whether or not they're if it's a H occupancy, a hazardous occupancy, that's really all we're doing. We're saying that if you look at the rest of NRS 477, it tells the state fire marshal exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be in schools and churches and places of assembly and eating and drinking establishments over 50 in those rural counties. But it doesn't mention anything about this because this wasn't a thing back then. All we're doing is we're saying that as the fire official and the authority having jurisdiction in those locations, we would be the ones to just ensure that they are meeting those basic standards. We're not adding specifics. There's already things within the International Fire Code that deal with these types of facilities.
Follow, please.
Asking is for the businesses to submit and comply with a new regulation, correct? On what the CCB is requiring.
Mike Dezak, State Fire Marshal, for the record. I don't believe so. I mean, whatever they require would still have to be the minimum fire codes adopted by the State Fire Marshal. You cannot be less stringent than the State Fire Marshal codes. Local jurisdictions can enact codes that are more stringent, and they often do. Places like Clark County have their own fire code that's far more stringent than the base code adopted by the fire marshal. My codes are supposed to apply predominantly, well, they, across the state, but in the rural. So we stay to the base code. They would have to do all these things anyway. We would just be the ones who handle it for them, instead of going to the chief of Caliente who doesn't have that level of expertise. We're there to say, answer the questions and ensure the compliance, that's all.
Please follow.
But in order to receive a that the organizations must now get your approval, your inspection approval, in order to secure that license.
For the record, Mike Dezak, State Fire Marshal. I don't know a whole lot about the cannabis system, I guess you would say. This is something new to us, and again, through the Board of Fire Services and the discussions, someone has to look at these. Someone has to sign off. So if that business wants to set up somewhere, there's a fire official somewhere who went in, did the inspection, ensured the minimum code standards, and said, okay, they're good to go. That is separate from what a license would be for them to do it. No matter where in the state they would build this facility. What we're saying is that those communities, especially in the rurals, which again, we believe there's about 25 of them, can be set up in places where there isn't anyone that is, that has the licensing, the ICC certifications in order to perform an inspection and know whether they're under compliance with the adopted fire codes.
Sure. Follow, please.
Have you spoken to the CCB about?
For the record, Mike Dezak, State Fire Marshal, yes, we got the lists from them and they took us on a tour. They didn't take me, I couldn't do it, I was away, but they took my Assistant State Fire Marshal on a tour. We discussed it, they gave us lists and of the facilities, and that's kind of how we got here.
How is a company, a small organization,
Mike Dezak, for the record, that would depend. If they're currently in business, we would have to go in, perform the inspection and ensure that the base fire code is met. And if it isn't, we would then work with them to gain compliance. If it was a new facility, then they would submit their plans for that facility to us. There would be a fee. We would then do the inspections, ensure the safety of the building, and there were really not in this to gain any kind of funding. This is really just a safety issue for us.
Please follow.
will you be conducting any workshops in conjunction with the CCB to take into consideration the licensees and the feedback that they may have?
For the record, Mike Dezak, I hadn't planned on that, but I'm more than happy to. This is, again, this is something that I think needs to be addressed. Again, if you build this building in Clark County, Washoe County, Carson City, they're going to have to comply with much stricter standards than the state fire marshal, regardless of whatever their licensing requirements is. We are not trying to get into the licensing requirement for cannabis facilities business. We are simply just trying to make sure that the workers that go in there and work all day are safe.
They don't comply, they don't get a license.
Mike Dezak, for the record, yes.
And I just want to bring up, for example, we have the city of North Las Vegas here. They have very strict regulations with regard to fire measurements. So will you be overriding those?
For the record, Mike Dezak, the state fire marshal regulations apply throughout the state, except my ability to enforce them is limited to counties of the population of under 100,000. Therefore, while those base codes would apply in North Las Vegas because it's in a county with population greater than 100,000, we would not do anything with that. You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Members, any additional questions? Senator Neal, please.
So it's I have a question that kind of dovetails into Senator Rogich. So in NRS 477-031, the language says anything that you're taking on, it says shall, said basically if you're going to go and look at an agency, you get a chance to set up fees for those services and activities. So you had mentioned to Senator Ellison that it's fee-based. So what is your expectation to collect fees from the cannabis facilities who you will now be going in to look at? I mean, because technically it would fall under your jurisdiction because then you have to adopt a reg. So although 477-030 is there, it leads you right to the next one to adopt a reg for the new activity.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Mike Dezak, State Fire Marshal, for the record. Not necessarily. The regs are already in place, and the ICC codes, the International Fire Code, already addresses these types of facilities. State Fire Marshal to those types of facilities does not charge for the inspection unless it is in conjunction with a plan review. So if you built a building and it had a plan review, there would be a fee for that. There would then be, built into it, a fee for the inspection. We do not charge churches and schools and other places to do the inspection, and that's part of it. There's not that many of them, and we're out there doing them already. So we would be able to look for that. But the fees would really be only with a tenant improvement or some sort of change or building of a new facility. They're not going to get hit with a fee for the inspection specific.
Just a quick follow-up. Your fees are generated from, say that again, what are your fees generated from?
Thank you, Senator. Mike Dezak, for the record. The fees are generated normally in this, where this is placed in the statute, from plan reviews. So if you did a tenant improvement or and you wanted to add an addition onto this, and it's a H occupancy, a hazardous occupancy, we would then do the plan review to ensure that the fire systems are in compliance with that, and then there would be a fee with that. With the fee, you get an inspection. So when you're ready, we go in, we inspect it, we say you're good to go, we write you a certificate of compliance, and we're on our way. The annual inspection of those facilities is already in the statute that we don't charge for. So those inspections will not cost the businesses anymore.
Okay, can you break down then, what's the meaning? So if you go into section 1, line 33, 34, where this is new language, where you're adding a public assembly. So it's under the cannabis cultivation, cannabis production, and now sub 3 and line 33, now we have a public assembly that is gathering of more than 50 folks. So give us the real life application of what the adding of this language means and what will you be doing around a public assembly?
Mike Dezak, State Fire Marshal, for the record. I'd like to bring up my engineering chief, Albert Reese. Mike Dezak, for the record, could you repeat the question for Albert?
The question is on line 33 on section 1, what is the application of this public assembly? Like, what will you be doing in regards to your duties and powers, which come under 477-030, in regards to a public assembly, which means a building or a portion that is being used for someone who's gathering 50 or more persons? Because it sounds like it's any kind of entertainment or other things, but you're adding this language. So what are you trying to get at?
Albert Reese, Bureau Chief. I'm sorry, excuse me about that. Albert Reese, Bureau Chief, Fire Protection Engineering. And basically what the gist of this portion is if one of these facilities would like to have some kind of public assembly in place for training or any kind of purpose where there's 50 or more persons, that's when this would be brought into place.
You mean a cannabis facility?
That's correct. There's already provisions in the NRS my apologies, Albert Reese, Bureau Chief, Fire Protection Engineering. There's already provisions in place for 50 persons in the public assembly in other areas such as churches, schools, those type of assemblies. What this is doing is including the public assembly portion into a cannabis facility occupancy.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Members, any additional questions? Thank you. If I could have the three of you step back, and I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 25 to please come forward. We'll start in Carson City. Seeing none, is there anybody in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 25? Hearing none, BPS, anybody wishing to join us on, over the phone in support of Senate Bill 25?
Chair, your public line is open and working. You have no callers at this time.
Thank you. BPS will stay on the phone. Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 25 over the phone?
Chair, you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. Is there anybody in Carson City? We have one. Welcome. Whenever you're ready.
Hello, Will Adler for the record with Silver State Government Relations, representing Green Thumbs Industries, or GTI. Just taking this from the top down as I read it here, but there is a lot to be unpacked with the testimony from the fire marshal. I do agree that there is a lot of danger with, like he said, unlicensed cannabis production facilities. And we have seen these actually crop up in things like U-Haul containers and things like that, but these are actually illicit businesses that are actually doing illegal extraction for the most part. But multiple fire districts, multiple fire marshals have had homes and small containers and other places have these explosive events where people incorrectly extract cannabis products. But by and large, that is in no way the cannabis industry of Nevada. The licensed industry, as Senator Rogich did reference, is the most licensed or most scrutinized license in Nevada possibly. But to get one of these production licenses, you actually have to go through a very extensive local government process with the fire marshals, with the teams there. Even in rural counties, I've put some of these together in Pahrump. I've done them in Lyon County and other places. There's a very extensive back and forth with your local government because it's not just the fire overview, it's the whole special use permit process. So even if it's not a big established county like Washoe or Clark County, there's a very in-depth process for every local government special use process. And each one of them took a pretty fine-tooth comb look at production facilities, especially because they were very new, very unknown at the time, and did have a lot of unknown risks when it came to fire and explosive events. But we do have a lot of processes in place. So I see sort of the logic in the language here, but it is more a problem I see outside of the licensed commercial cannabis business here in Nevada. And just speaking to it, most of these establishments are sort of established at this point. So having some penalties around or meanings to ensure, access to the facility or, additional exit, terms. Maybe if it was signage, that'd be okay, but if we have to structurally change some of these buildings, most of them are already built at this point. So maybe some notion of grandfathering or something to that degree would need to be in here. Other than that, yeah, I do think the rest of the bill has some merit, the non-cannabis cultivation and production portion of it, but I do agree this is a problem, mostly outside of the regulated market, though. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to testify in opposition in Carson City? Seeing none. Las Vegas, anybody wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 25 in Las Vegas? Seeing nobody in Las Vegas, we'll move to the neutral position. BPS, anybody joining us over the phone wishing to testify in the neutral position?
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. And I see nobody in Las Vegas. Anybody in Carson City wishing to speak in the neutral position? Seeing none stepping forward, if I could have closing remarks from our fire marshal, please. And as you make your way up, I know that we had a lengthy discussion leading up to this hearing. I know the intent was for you to be able to go in and enforce the rules in place now and not necessarily expand beyond that scope. And also in terms of fees, it was not the intent to come in and start adding additional fees. I think we will have an opportunity to work collectively along with Senator Rogich and some of the other members just to ensure that we're capturing the true intent of the bill. We already have an amendment that's being proposed anyway that's friendly, so that opens the door for us to find some common ground. Please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman Flores and members of the committee for allowing me to be heard today. I understand all the questions. Myself and my staff stand ready at any time for more questions and answers, workshops. I've been doing this for 25 years here. I've spent almost half my life, started as an inspector and worked my way up to the chief's position. And I understand the difference in the rural communities. And I can tell you with all honesty, this was brought simply from a safety standpoint. This was not from a regulatory fee base or to get involved in the cannabis licensing. It is simply a let's make sure everybody's being safe. And if it doesn't specifically say it in the statute and a company comes into one of those jurisdictional counties, I want you to understand there may not be anyone there with ICC certifications to ensure that those workers are provided a safe working environment to deal with the hazardous materials in place. And that is the reasoning behind this. Thank you for all your time, and I will answer any questions.
Thank you again. We look forward to working together. I'm sure we'll find some common ground to address the true intent. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Senate Bill 25, and we'll move to our final bill presentation, which is Senate Bill 27. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon. We've got a presentation that I can't deal with the record.
Okay. Good. Yeah. There's a button right underneath the microphone that turns it green. That means it's good to go.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Dan Thielen, and I am the Administrator in Nevada Division of Museums and History in the Department of Cultural Tourism and Cultural Affairs. It just seems like yesterday when I was with you, and I'm so glad to be back here. We're absolutely thrilled to be here today because museums are a vital and dynamic part of state government, providing unparalleled benefits to Nevada's communities. Our museums are at the forefront of inspiring curiosity and lifelong learning for all generations and enriching lives by preserving and sharing our rich cultural heritage. The work we do is crucial, and its impact on Nevada communities is profound. We are proud of the significant role that we play and the positive influence that we have across the state. Nevada Division of Museums and History comprises 7 important museums throughout the state. We save and share Nevada's heritage to inspire curiosity and lifelong learning for all generations. We provide a welcoming space that inspires, informs, and connects all who explore our shared history. We have a rich tradition of public service, inclusivity, collaboration, teamwork, stewardship, and transparency. Our museums are pivotal in sharing and enhancing the cultural heritage and social life across Nevada. They tell captivating stories, preserve our rich heritage, interpret our past, and explore our future. Museums enrich our lives daily, satisfying our thirst for knowledge and sparking our imaginations. They offer forums for learning, for enjoyment, and a well-deserved escape from everyday hustle. Museums preserve countless priceless objects, safeguarding these treasures for future generations. Our impact on communities go far beyond the numbers that you're seeing above us, and our museums, in their broadest sense, also provide welcoming spaces where communities come together. They can interact, understand, and celebrate cultural heritage. The contributions of museums are invaluable, and they continue to make a profound difference in the lives of so many. One of the primary ways that museums play a vital role in saving history is through collecting, curating, and protecting items for future generations. Arguably, the core of a museum is its collections. And these items have the unique ability to unlock the past in a way that storytelling, conventional education, and reading cannot match. It's an important undertaking that requires skilled professionals to ensure that materials are properly cared for and preserved. We share our history in countless ways, many of which are unconventional. If we had the time, I could share experiences when Nevada's collections have connected with people with disabilities. When the public come in contact with our artifacts and finally understand their meaning, a whole part of their brain lights up and you can see where that takes place. And you become grateful for the people who preserved it, because I wasn't here. Somebody thought about it 50, 60, 80 years ago. And they allow us to illuminate aspects of history that are often overlooked in traditional education. This division is the most remarkable division in the state. We assist other agencies in numerous ways, and I'll mention two examples where I was personally involved. This just happened within a couple of months, so they're kind of cool. We helped UNR ROTC in Fort Churchill in the Nevada State Parks Division. Both of them, oddly, have cannons that they use for demonstrations. And they were having problems in both areas. And for a number of years, I served in the Army as an artilleryman, as a gun chief. And so when it came up that they needed some assistance, and they asked one of the museums to assist, I inserted myself in the middle of it. And so we went out and did some research and helped them at UNR. We inspected and certified their pack howitzers so that when, should the occasion arise, that UNR scores a touchdown, they can blast that cannon with a pound of black powder. And it's really, really cool. We got to do that on the day when the stadium was empty. And Fort Churchill has some cannons that were from 1863, that Civil War era, brand new out of the box. They almost never used them, so they're in really good shape. But the trunnions and the wheels needed some assistance, and they reached out again to the Nevada State Railroad Museum, and they are now in the process of being preserved. And in this way, we support other agencies. If you can add gunpowder to that service, that's a lot more fun, and that was terrific. Finally, we assist in the curation, protection, and consultation of the remains of Native Americans on behalf of state agencies and federal government. While so many of our activities and services that we provide are inspiring and fun, this particular work is sacred. We work hard with the tribes of Nevada to ensure their ancestors are returned to where they belong. And in the interim, while we have them, we care for them in a way that we hope brings comfort to those who are connected to them. This difficult task is challenging and it's fraught with nuance. But when we get it right, it becomes clear why this activity is so important. SB 27 will directly help us in this effort. Next slide. Oop. Let's go back. The Board of Museums and History is our strong supporter. They provide assistance with many activities with museum. They began in 1939. The board was started by overseeing the State Museum in Carson City, one singular museum, and their activities and expenditures. Originally, the board included the museum staff and some people from the community. And they ensured the museums operated transparently and adhered to an ethical code. Over the past 86 years, the board has evolved and expanded its responsibilities to oversee all 7 museums and with a particular focus on managing their trust fund. Today, the board's 2 primary duties are to govern the trust fund and oversee its expenditures and to support the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, in their duties. This includes reviewing recommendations for the State Register of Historic Places and the National Register as well, and other significant activities. Next slide. SB 27 does three things. First, it renames the two state museums as the Nevada State Museum in Las Vegas and the Nevada State Museum in Carson City. This change removes any perceived distinctions from among our museums, emphasizing that our museums are equal and none is above the other. The second change with SB 27 is to grant the Board of Museums and History the authority to establish fees and services provided to the public or to other agencies with regard to curation and similar activities. This will allow us to receive funds for services, funds for storage of materials, and recover costs associated with this work, which includes research. Finally, SB 27 will remove archaic language that confuses Collections Management Authority. Next slide. We feel this naming convention will reflect that every citizen in Nevada has a claim on Nevada's museums. These museums belong to the people of Nevada. In the next 150 years, if our system grows and we add more museums throughout the state, we want to ensure that if there's a state museum in Nevada, it's the state's museum. And if we add one in Elko, it's the state's museum and it belongs to the people of Nevada. While we have no current expectations of adding a museum in Elko or Minot, the future is as unpredictable as the past is mysterious. We want to ensure that if the state is involved in historic preservation through its museums, they belong to the state. That means they belong to you. Next slide. This proposed policy will enable our museums to charge reasonable and customary fees for a range of services provided to the public, state agencies, federal agencies, and other museums. These services encompass storage, curation, repair, and specialized study. The revenue generated from these fees will be pivotal in covering the cost of utilities, wages, essential materials, which support our operations and allied activities. Moreover, the policy allows us to establish specific fees for storage and curation services, ensuring that these funds contribute to both our general fund and trust fund activities. This financial support is crucial for maintaining and enhancing our capabilities. Our dedicated staff will meticulously develop policies and a pricing structure based on actual costs. These proposals will be presented to the board for their thorough review and approval. This approach not only ensures transparency and accountability, but also guarantees that we can continue to provide exceptional service while maintaining financial sustainability. Next slide. The Board of Museums and History began its journey in 1939. Initially, the board included Nevada State Museum staff and other people in the public. Today, the board combines the boards of the State Museum in Carson City, the Historical Society, and the responsibilities of the State Historic Preservation Office. We find the clause in NRS 381 at the sole discretion of the board unnecessary now. It conflicts with language later in the NRS with respect to the administrators and the directors who have responsibilities. In the board's responsibilities, it specifically states that their role is advisory, except for the financial part of it. But later, this clause pops up that says, whenever you want to take something and show it inside or outside the state, you can do it at the sole discretion of the board. And so it confuses responsibilities. And our staff affectionately, because it's in NRS 381-00632F, and every time it comes up, they refer to it as the F clause for reasons that I can't understand, but it's a little problematic for them. It duplicates the responsibilities of the administrator and museum directors that they are mandated to carry out by the state. In 1939, this clause was essential because no authority existed to exhibit the state museum's property in other locations without the board's sole discretion. However, as our institutions have evolved and grown, the need for this clause has diminished. Our current administrative and curatorial teams possess the expertise and statutory authority to make decisions regarding the management and exhibition of our collections. This change reflects our commitment to streamlining processes and ensuring that our museums operate with the highest level of efficiency and professionalism. By updating our policies and removing outdated language, we're better equipped to serve the public and fulfill our mission of preserving and sharing Nevada's rich cultural heritage. Thank you for your time and attention today. We're incredibly proud of the work we do in the division, and we're excited about the bright future ahead. Together, we'll continue to preserve and celebrate Nevada's rich cultural heritage, ensuring that it inspires and educates generations to come. We'll move forward with enthusiasm and commitment, and knowing that our efforts are making a lasting positive impact on our communities and their citizens. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. I am prepared for your questions.
And thank you for that very detailed and enthusiastic presentation. I appreciate that. Next, I'd like to go to questions. We'll start with Senator Ellison, please.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. Question I've got is Ely's train station. Can you give us an update where we're at on the old train in Ely? I think that's important and very vital to that area. It's amazing what that thing does, and during programs like Christmas and everything else, that train's running. The 4th of July, they blow fireworks off the top of the train. It's pretty neat as they're traveling. So I'd like to get an update where we're at and how it's going and how it's holding together.
Dan Thielen for the record, direct. Chair.
Please do.
Senator Ellison, thank you for your question. There are 2 activities out at the East Ely Depot and the Nevada Northern Railway Foundation, and they're complementary. There is a tourist train out there and an amazing facility with 40 buildings on it, and the state currently is the holder, owns the depot and the freight barn. The language in the transfer is strong, and it is clear that the state owns those 2 buildings, and there is some conflict with the foundation on determining what that really means, and so we have some issues that have devolved into litigation now, and so we will be in front of we will resolve it through the courts, and there's currently a lawsuit. So the concern is that the foundation has some use of the depot within the language of the transfer of the deed. And they have interpreted that they have unlimited access without having to pay for utilities, maintenance, and repairs. And it's costing the state a tremendous amount of money in doing that. So trying to resolve that through agreement, we had an agreement, they unilaterally broke it and haven't paid us anything since probably 2018 or 19 is the last time we've seen anything. They contend they are correct, we contend we're correct. We don't want that to be harmed. We think that the activities are complementary. The state of Nevada does a great program teaching history. They do a great program managing a tourist railroad. And the 2 are not in conflict. They are absolutely complementary. And we'd love to be a great partner with them to enhance that program, because it is probably the entire site together, the state and the foundation, probably the best preserved piece of history, industrial technology from the 30s, 40s, and 50s on the planet. It's absolutely amazing, and it's exciting when you go out there. It's a tragedy that the agreement over usual and customary is causing this conflict. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I've been involved with that. Yeah, I've been involved with that since, I think, 2011. And so we could see the progress and the problems that's occurred during the time. But the big thing is this: we need to stay focused on what that does to the community, that train and the gift shops and stuff like this. A lot of people have never been on a old steam engine like the one we have here in Carson. You know, it's kind of neat to let the people come through there and see that and enjoy it. So anything we can do to help, we want to, but I just want to see that thing be preserved for years to come. Thank you.
Members, any additional questions? Senator Daley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to, thanks for the explanation. I think you primarily answered my questions on the deletion of the sole discretion language in the Section F question, right? But, so just explain a little bit, just so I understand. You have the board. How is the board constituted? Who appoints them? What are there? And then does the board hire the administrator? And is there only one administrator? And then you have individual directors for each museum that the administrator gives direction to, and the director carries out that. Is that correct, or can you just give me a baseline of how the board gets, and what the hierarchy is, like a chart almost?
Dan Thielen for the record. Direct, sir.
Please go direct. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Daley, it's a great question and you nailed it. The administrator works for the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, and it manages 7 directors, one in each museum. The board is advisory in its capacity, and so on selection of the administrator, the board advises the Director of Tourism and Cultural Affairs on their selection for that person. And then their role primarily is to manage the trust funds of the state. The NRS 381 has given tremendous responsibility to the Division of Museums and History and its board to manage donated funds. And those funds do not come into the general fund. And while they're very modest, there's not a lot of amounts in there, but if somebody donates $50 and they could only afford $50, we've got a responsibility to ensure that those funds are used well and they go with the intent of the donor. Whether it's $1 million donation or $5, we want to make sure those funds are cared for, and we marshal them pretty carefully and we spend them very carefully, and the board provides oversight on that expenditure.
Please follow up.
So is the board appointed by the governor, but the administrator is hired by the tourism division with advice and consent, if you will, right, on that. But the board is actually appointed how?
Dan Thielen for the record. I agree with that. You saw my nods, but you probably couldn't hear them. But yes, the administrator is an employee of the state in unclassified service, working directly for the Director of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. And the board is appointed by the governor of the state, and they have a pretty big range of requirements. So if you go into the statute and you read, we've got to have historical archaeology or collection, somebody with archaeology, somebody with historic buildings, representatives of the Native American community and other members of the public.
And I asked the question, if I can, Mr. Chair, based on what you explained to us and the role of the board, advisory, administering, make sure that the grants or anything they received is in compliance with the requirements of the donation, et cetera. And then the whole section where we have the Section F, where we're removing that potentially conflicting language, starts out, it says, the administrator may authorize or require a museum director to, then it goes through the several things. I'm just curious if there's a similar type of potential conflict in D, where you would establish such a program in history, archaeology, anthropology, paleontology, mineralogy, a bunch of other ologies, in such other programs as in the judgment of the board and the administrator may be proper and necessary to carry out the objectives and purposes. So is it the administrator that has that authority, or is it the judgment of the board and the administrator that have a similar conflict, or is it just a piece you skipped over, or I don't know?
Dan Thielen for the record. this has never been a conflict. The other point has been a conflict, and can I do a little bit of research and get back to you on that?
Yeah, and I'm not saying if there's no conflict, you need to, find a problem. But the way you explained it is that the board has a role, and that could potentially be a conflict to some point, if in their judgment, they don't want to do it. And if it's not their role, might as well do it while you're here, and you don't have to bother the legislature with, no, I'm kidding. We're here at your service as well, so,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Members, any additional questions? Senator Ellison, please.
One thing I'd like to ask about, and I know that a lot of that is private fund money that goes in, but the bookmobile that they have in Elko, I mean, that gets into a lot of areas. It's fantastic what they do and where they get to. So is that still gonna be funded and keep going, or where are we at with that?
Dan Thielen, for the record, that is not a function of the Division of Museums and History, so I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Well, I knew it was with the museum, so yeah. Okay. Well, I knew it was private money, so that I knew. Yeah. Okay.
Dan Thielen, for the record, if you'd like, I'll look into it and.
Oh, I'll step in there. I've got friends that work there, and it's an amazing program that they got. And it looks like most of that is raised by private funding, or maybe the state, she said, through education, so. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you again for the presentation. If I could have you sit back, and I'll invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 27 in Carson City to please step forward. Seeing none in Carson City, is there anybody wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 27 in Las Vegas? Seeing none on the monitor, BPS, anybody wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 27 over the phone?
If you would like to testify in support of SB 27, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 008, we can see you're unmuted on our end. Is it possible you're muted on your end?
No?
Oh, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. What you need to know?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Senator Edgar Flores. We are looking for those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 27. Would you like to do so now?
Okay, I'm not for sure what bill number it is for us. This was,
Oh, no, no.
Senator Neal?
No. So, thank you. We are right now asking for testimony in support of Senate Bill 27. So if we could have you call back
Okay.
for public comment, please.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else wishing to we are not in public comment, just for the sake of clarity, and I know it can be confusing, but if there's anybody wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 27 over the phone, if you could please let us know now.
Again, if you would like to testify in support, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. We are on Senate Bill 27. Chair, you have no more callers wishing to participate at this time.
Thank you. We'll stay on the phone. Is there anybody wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 27? BPS, please.
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 27, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. Is there anybody wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 27 in Carson City? If you could please come forward. Good afternoon and welcome. And just for the sake of clarity, if you see me throw up the number 2, that means we just hit the 2 minutes. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Mic is already on, I believe. It's left on. Okay. Chairman Flores and committee, I would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. My name is Dave Pearson. David, if you need it for the record. I'm a resident of Carson City. I'm a member, a supporter, and a volunteer at the Nevada State Museum. And I am also a member of the Friends of the Nevada State Museum, which is a nonprofit entity that supports the museum. However, today I am representing my own personal opinion on SB 27. My position is specifically in opposition to the proposed name change of the Nevada State Museum. First, the Nevada State Museum, located in Carson City, has been open since 1941 with the name title that has not changed in all that time. There's no need to change a name simply to add the geographic location of the title. Other institutions, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, the University of Nevada, Reno, do not include the word "in" within their names. And I don't see them having a geographic problem, being UNLV, UNR. So I do not understand putting in the bill. Second, the Nevada State Museum in Las Vegas has been known since its creation as just that, and no other further distinction should be needed. If the committee is committed to geographic difference between the two museums, I think what I'm seeing in the bill is they're going to take out the semicolon between the Nevada State Museum in Carson City and put in there for the geographic location. I submit that to do that, they could also just take the Las Vegas and add a semicolon in between Las Vegas in between Nevada State Museum, semicolon, Las Vegas, and that would accomplish the same thing without changing what we've had in our record since 1941 here in Carson.
Sir, we have passed the 2-minute mark. If you want to just do your last closing remark, please.
Fiscal agency said there would not be any resources required. However, I don't know how it's been resolved. So that was my only other question.
Thank you for that. Please welcome whenever you're ready.
My name is Cora Johnson, and I'm representing myself. I guess that's how you put it, but thank you for having us today. I also echo what Mr. Pearson has said about taking out the word "in," except that I would put a comma between the two locations. Primarily for me is because it doesn't roll off the tongue. It's like UNR or UNLV. On the presentation that we just saw, the NSMLV, which to me implies there's no "in." We should eliminate that. And I would also recommend that the word "in" be taken out of the two railroad museums here in Carson City and Boulder City. So I thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I don't believe we have any questions for you, but
Okay.
I do appreciate you coming forward. Is there anybody else wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 27? Seeing none in Las Vegas or Carson City, next we'll move to the neutral position. Anybody wishing to testify in the neutral position over the phone, VPS, please.
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 27, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to participate at this time.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Carson City or Las Vegas, wishing to testify in the neutral position. Seeing no one stepping forward, any closing remarks you may have, please. And if I could just have you turn on the mic, please.
Dan Thielen for the record. We are grateful to have had a few moments to spend with you here to discuss these things. We will take the comments in the intent that they meant, and we will consider those as well, and perhaps come to a different conclusion. But we are happy to be with you. It's good to see you again. Thank you.
And thank you again. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Senate Bill 27. Members, before we move to public comment, we were originally going to have a presentation by the City of North Las Vegas, but as you all know, recently, police officer Jason Roscoe was killed on the line of duty. He is going to be honored tomorrow in a procession that's going to be taking place at 9 in the morning. I will share those details. It's going to be starting at 9 a.m., and my understanding is it's going to start on, and I'm just reading off the information here, 1600 South Jones Boulevard, which is the Palm South Jones Mortuary at 9 a.m. But because of obviously the importance of that he is respected and honored, unfortunately, our mayor who is here needed to catch the last plane to be back in Las Vegas to make sure that she was honoring that fallen officer. So we are going to go ahead and postpone that presentation for a later date that is easier for everyone so that she can take care of, obviously, that very important family that deserves everybody's respect. So unfortunately, we will have to continue the presentation by North Las Vegas. But again, just reminder, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., for those of you who are in the area, if you could please attend to respect the family. With that, the only last item on the agenda is public comment. If I could please have anybody in Carson City wishing to join us for public comment, if you could please come forward. Seeing none in Carson, oh, excuse me, public comment? Oh, my apologies. Wanted to make sure. Seeing none in Carson City, we'll go to Las Vegas. Anybody wishing to join us for public comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none there. Lastly, anybody over the phone, BPS, wishing to join us for public comment, please.
If you would like to participate in public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to participate in public comment, please press star 9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits of 500, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Thank you. Please continue. Caller, is it possible that you are muted on your end? Chair, it looks like we're having issues with this caller. Would you like me to move on?
Please do. And caller, if you're having issues with us hearing you, feel free to go ahead and hang up and try calling back again. BPS, next caller, please.
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to participate at this time.
Understood. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out public comment. Thank you all for joining us. Just for the sake of clarity and lay of land, we won't be meeting on Friday or Monday. We'll be back in this room at 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday of next week. I appreciate everybody's engagement, and I look forward to next week. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and be careful. My understanding tomorrow's weather conditions indicated several inches of snow, so drive safe out there. Be safe. This meeting's adjourned.